That right there is the people's house.
Or at least it's supposed to be the people's house.
But instead, what is going on is self-dealing and insider trading of epic proportion. The national debt is now up to almost $40 trillion, a number I don't think our brains can truly comprehend. They are allowing corporations to poison our food supply, and on top of that, not allowing us to sue if and when we inevitably get sick. The military-industrial complex is bigger than ever. The forever wars continue, usually because a certain country in the Middle East tells us to. And what if, God forbid, someone in Congress decides to get a conscience for once, to maybe hold billionaire pedophiles accountable?
I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island.
Oh, those billionaires, they'll pour $30 million to buy your seat. So just vote harder next time. Just take a look at this. The top 3 most expensive House primary ousters in U.S. election history. Number 1, Thomas Massie, $35 million in 2026. Number 2, Jamal Bowman, $20 million 2024. And number 3, Cori Bush, $15 million in 2024. And what do they all have in common? To quote Kanye, I can't say, but it's Israel. The National Mall in DC is really something else, even on a dreary day like today. And even with all of the construction that's going on for the 250th anniversary of America. I mean, look around. You got all the white marble, manicured lawns, which I think they're painting the pool blue now to make it look nice, but to also make you believe that the government is kind and just. Right? I think all these monuments are meant to remind us that we owe the glory of this country to all these benevolent, godlike saviors, quote unquote. And that when times get tough, there's always going to be someone who rises up and saves us. But I don't think that's actually true anymore. Or maybe it never was. In this temple, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. A lot of people say that Abraham Lincoln was one of the greatest presidents of all time, if not the greatest president of all time, because he saved the Union. But let me tell you some of the other things that he did. He suspended the writ of habeas corpus, which allowed military authorities to arrest and detain suspected Confederate sympathizers, spies, and draft resistors without trial. He also issued an executive order to arrest and imprison, quote, irresponsible newspaper reporters and editors. It was literally like one of the biggest censorship campaigns of all time. We're talking like 300 plus newspapers, I think, were shut down, editors arrested, no due process. Regional Army Commander Ambrose Burnside orders the closing of the Chicago Times for disloyalty. Quote, under its editor Wilbur Fisk Story, the Chicago Times had long been hostile to Abraham Lincoln, the Republican Party, and government policy, calling the Emancipation Proclamation, quote, monstrous usurpation, and protested particularly vehemently the military arrest and banishment of Ohio Congressman Clement L. Vanningham. On Burnside's action, 20,000 Chicagoans protested in the streets that evening, and President Lincoln later recommended rescinding the order. The Times reopened 4 days after its closing. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to protecting the Constitution, it's not the elected officials, it's not the courts, it is the people who protect the free press, the people marching in the streets who refuse to comply. I think this is where they filmed the famous Mr. X scene in the movie JFK, where if you remember, Kevin Costner's character met with Mr. X, who is this shadowy, high-level intel agent who tells him that the JFK assassination was a part of this huge conspiracy because he was trying to dismantle the deep state. This was the shot right around here. I'm going to superimpose the bench in there. Something like that. Pretty cool. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Today, I think we remember FDR as this kind of legendary champion of the people, responsible for getting us out of the Great Depression, all of the New Deal programs he enacted, public works project, et cetera, et cetera. And regardless of whether you are for or against that kind of thing, that is how he's presented to us. But check this article out, the Hoover Institute, How FDR Saved Capitalism. The article basically details how FDR worked to essentially destroy any burgeoning third-party movement, which is very interesting and sort of depressing given the state of our duopoly, maybe even uniparty, as you would call it. But I want to read you one passage. It says here, if the Great Depression, with all its attendant effects, shifted national attitudes to the left, why was it that no strong radical movement committed itself to a third party during these years? The answer? He used two basic tactics. First, he responded to the various outgroups by incorporating in his own rhetoric many of their demands. Second, he absorbed the leaders of these groups into his following. I think we see some modern day parallels, if you know what I mean.
Like, I think there's a guy in the White House right now who, I don't know, adopted, or maybe you could say co-opted some of the most powerful anti-establishment language out there in order to get elected, and also openly invited key figures of these outsider movements into his administration and arguably neutered all of them.
So this right here is actually maybe one of my favorite spots in the entire mall. It's the World War II Memorial, and it opened in 2004, and I don't think the timing was a coincidence. Because in 2004, the Bush administration was basically facing a massive crisis of legitimacy. The weapons of mass destruction in Iraq were nowhere to be found. American casualties were mounting in the war on terror. And all the post 9/11 national unity and goodwill was basically all gone by that point. So basically, by dedicating this massive and triumphant plaza commemorating the heroes of World War II, what the Bush administration was basically trying to do is say, look, Iraq, yeah, things are not going ideal, but it's worth it because people are evil out there. It's 1941 again, and we have to kill them all.
I find everything in here amazing. I mean, everything that all these people who fought in the war, they did it for their country, and they did it for a good reason, and they weren't just out there to kill people. They really believed in what they were doing.
In other words, manufacturing consent. We are now coming up on the Jefferson Memorial. Architecturally speaking, from a person who doesn't know anything about architecture, looks like a masterpiece to me. It's like the American version of the Pantheon, I think. But it was literally built during the Great Depression. It says here, FDR lays the cornerstone of the Jefferson Memorial November 15th, 1939. I mean, could you imagine if Trump built something like this?
This is a gift to the United States of America. And more than a gift, it's going to be one of the most beautiful buildings that's ever been built in the country or in Washington, D.C.
That is kind of Trump's MO, isn't it? He's basically doing what every other leader has done in the past, but he's like flaunting it in our face. So there's no ambiguity as to what is actually going on here. It also says here, President Franklin D. Roosevelt championed the Thomas Jefferson Memorial during the Great Depression to politically legitimize his New Deal policies and inspire Americans. He positioned the monument as a symbol of democracy and individual liberty, connecting his own administration's efforts to the Founding Fathers' democratic ideals. Yeah, it's propaganda, once again. And you could even say that FDR laundered the image of a founding father in order to push his political agenda. And the irony, too, is that Thomas Jefferson was all about limited government. I think he said something like, government big enough to give you everything you want is government big enough to take away everything you have. Actually, no, that was Gerald Ford. Anyway, my point is the idea of a hero is always warm and comforting. Like, if we vote this guy in or that guy in, then we will all be saved. That is why all of this is here. The propaganda wants you to think that benevolent leaders are responsible for all of the change. But I think history, and we're talking about the real history, not the history that you read in the textbooks, shows us that leaders, whether it be in that house or that house, they really only care about getting power and maintaining that power for as long as possible. Like, if they survive politically long enough to get one of these monuments, it's likely they did some shady shit. So yeah, it sucked that Thomas Massie lost, and rewind 10 years ago, it also was pretty devastating that the establishment rigged the entire Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders. But the reality is the function of these anti-establishment leaders isn't necessarily to make change. They only have one vote. Their function, I think, is more like a release valve. To say some things in the halls of Congress that we know to be absolute truths. And, it just helps us sleep a little bit better at night. Look, I'm not saying having moral people in government doesn't matter. It does matter. But we have to know that the system is always going to prioritize itself first. So if what we're looking for is change, we have to take that into our own hands. That is just the plain truth of the matter. Okay, once again, we know now we are not going to be able to vote our way out of this. If we want a better world, we have to go outside the system. We have to build parallel systems. We got to focus on our family, our community. And maybe it feels super daunting because we're just one person. But these small, independent actions are the only things that's ever moved history. That is it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different than what I usually do, but I think it's necessary given the times. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Also, if you want to support my journalism, you can head on over to 5149jameslee.com. You can sign up to be a member there. You can also give a one-time donation. I got merch for sale as well. But if not, no worries. Just take a second to like this video, share it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
One of the things that I preach now that I'm a legislator is noncompliance. People say you need small acts of random kindness. I think you need small acts of random noncompliance.